Now, the reason why you and I are here are to answer a very complicated question, but put in the most simplest form: do you fear the future? And to answer that question quite simply in a close-ended question is yes. Yes, I do fear the future. Many reasons as to why a person like me would fear the future. Now, to elaborate on the question, do you fear the future? Why do I fear the future? And there are a various amount of reasons as to why a person of my age would fear the future. And like many others my age, I am not the only one who does fear the future. Although the future is a scary and cool thing to think about where the world will be in years and years and years to come, but to also think about whether it's going to progress or if it's going to decline. And following many events in 2020, we've seen a massive amount of social, political, environmental issues, even economical issues that have really sparked the planet and have really been quite catastrophic and quite difficult and heartfelt in many different aspects across the world. Not only just given that we all had to face a pandemic that was claimed to be a man-made pandemic made by the Chinese government, which starts to get you thinking as to why it was made, and starts to get you thinking as to whether the government is actually on our side. And it's something that many of us have thought about, and many people think that others are crazy when they say that the government isn't on our side. And obviously we will never really know, but we can also take guesses, to kind of get an idea. And I think the main reason why I'm scared for the future is, amongst all these many reasons, is that I'm scared to grow up in a world and to grow up in a world where these societal, environmental and political and economical issues increase and get worse over time. You see it in movies, and with some movies you can see reality looks similar to the movie that's taken place. And so we really just have to kind of think. But the real main reason that I am scared and fear of the future is simply because I don't want to have to grow up in a world sort of, having to deal with these problems, or, having to live in a world where you don't know if you're going to live the next day, if you don't know if you're going to die the next day, or if you're going to survive the next day. And obviously we all know that anything can happen at any given time, but it's that question of living and surviving, because it's the world is starting to look like a free-for-all, where everyone will eventually have to fend for themselves, essentially. And everyone already does, but in a way where it gets to war really bad, parts of war. And, your imagination can really run wild, to be honest, with the countless amount of reasons as to why the future is so scary. Is because we don't know how many more man-made viruses there are going to be. We don't know how many more, or the increase of political, social, economical, all those sorts of factors, and we don't know how bad those issues and crises are going to get. So it's kind of just, it's scary. It's scary to think about, and it's definitely a scary thing that is spoken about as well. So that's why it's such a big question as to why do we as people and as a young generation, why do we fear the future? Another reason is the fact of not only these issues, but media having an intake on young people's lives, and especially with TikTok and Instagram, we do see it can brainwash people, and it does it's very addictive, and psychologically we as humans get sucked into these social platforms, and we are fed information, some information which we need to be told, but other information which shouldn't be told at such a young age. And so there are many factors that as to why I would, fear the future, like many others. Now, how do you deal with the feeling? Well, to be quite honest, you don't deal with the feeling. You can't really get rid of it. There is no reassurance to it. It's kind of, you live and you learn. How do you deal or fight with the feeling? Well, to be honest, you don't fight with the feeling. There is no way that you can deal with it. You kind of just have to live with it. It's kind of, you live and you learn, and you live and you learn as you go, and you experience it as you go. We can't really predict the future at all. And so we can always try our hardest to make the world a better place. But we've been trying for so long that we can only wonder if it's only going to get better or worse. So there is kind of no way of being able to fight off that feeling of fear from the future. And it does suck. It's kind of something that you get used to the more you think about. Because to be honest, you can't fight the feeling. It's just a feeling that gets your imagination running. And obviously you can think ahead and be like, there are certain things that I do if this certain scenario or situation wants to play out. But yeah, you can't really fight that feeling. I mean, some people can ignore it, but there's no real proper reassurance or way of predicting the future. So to be quite honest, we can only find out or know when it happens.